What's going on, y'all? Jordan the Maestro back again with another video. Last week was a great week, but that's all over now. It's time to prepare for the week to come. Time to dive into the charts. You ready? Let's go. All right, y'all, we're on the charts. We'll start off with gold right now, and we're going to make sure we understand where we are from an overall view all the way down to more finite views, or in other words, we're going to do top-down analysis to see where we are in the market and what potential opportunities we could be waiting for. All right, so if we take a look here with gold, we have an all-time high, which was right under, you could say, 2075, right about under that. So this was the all-time high right around there. Okay, let me just draw a line right around there. That is our all-time high. And if we look at where we are currently, with current price, we are slowly creeping up to that area. All right, so just from the weekly time frame, we already see that we are getting ready and getting closer to heavy resistance. Obviously, it's going to be very heavy resistance, maybe the heaviest type of resistance for gold, because it's going to attempt to break an all-time high and create a new high. So that's going to be very difficult, and I don't think that's going to happen without any kinds of pushback. So that being said, we need to be paying very close attention to how the market starts to shape up in the week to come. From this structure already, if you look at the candles, it looks like the farther we go up, the more we're losing volume in the candles. And the candles are starting to lean a bit similar to a ascending channel. I'm sure that'll be a lot clearer as we go down to the daily. So if we go down to the daily over here, we can see, as you see, the candles start leaning upwards, okay? This is what we call an ascending channel, which is a reversal pattern. When you see an ascending channel, it typically means that price is getting ready for a fall, okay? Now, doesn't mean it's going to fall immediately, but it is in a formation where it is typically getting ready for a fall. Okay, so that being said, we want to see what starts to happen, what gold does as it's in this area. Now, don't get me wrong, we can push up much higher, and don't forget that this is on a weekly, on a daily time frame. So going back all the way up to this level, although it looks like it's still within the channel, on a lower time frame, we are going up significantly. So if we're currently at 2003 and the all-time high is 2073, yeah, we have 700 pips of a difference before we get to that all-time high. So definitely plenty of opportunity there. No need to rush into a sell unless we see a clear-cut opportunity to take that sell. Okay, so we're going to mark off areas of support and resistance that are very significant. So that all-time high obviously being one of them. Okay, so if I continue to look for different areas, I'm looking at this area over here where price once came up here, right? And fell down, and I'm gonna drag that all the way across. I'm gonna probably drag this area all the way across again as well. This area of resistance over here. And I believe that is what I'm seeing for the daily. That is significant to me. Okay, so that's what I'm seeing for the daily. So if we go to the 4 hour, let's take a look at what's going on the 4 hour. So if we take a look on the 4 hour over here, we are looking at more areas of support and resistance. So we see, I'm going to remove this channel just so I could see my areas of support and resistance more clearer. But I'm looking at this area over here. Price came up to this area over here and soon dropped down, went to the downside. And obviously price went as far as coming up here most recently before it took its drop. Okay, so obviously if price starts to come back down and breaks this area of support, our next area of support is going to be right over here. Okay, and then over here, and then all the way down. If it goes there, we'll draw more areas of support and resistance. But that's what we're working with at the moment. So at the moment, this is what we are working with on the 4 hour time frame. We also recognize we are on an uptrend. Okay, very clear that we are on an uptrend. Okay, now it remains to be seen if this slight break of the trend line is going to hold over here. Okay, so there is a slight break. As the market opens up, let's see how it reacts in this area. If we get a retest to this area for continuation downwards, or if we get right back into this trend line and continue going to the upside to get to that all-time high or that area of resistance that we see up there in the higher time frame. Okay, so that's what we want to watch for. We want to make sure, depending on what gold is giving us, what it's showing us, we want to react accordingly. So a couple of things can happen. Let's go down to the 1 hour time frame. So here on the 1 hour time frame, a couple of things can happen. We can have gold creep back up to this trend line over here and then give us our drop, maybe even break this area of support and head down to the next area of support. Or we can have perhaps even a small dip to get a double bottom over here in this area. You get your double bottom, and then you get your move to the upside coming back upwards. Okay, so that's another potential opportunity that I could foresee. So it's either or. I'm not going to stack them on top of each other, but make note that you can see either one of these play out. You can also see the market open up and completely tank downwards. That's also a possibility. But again, the main point is whatever it is, whatever the market does, you want to wait for that retest before you act. So if it's going to come up to the trend line and retest the trend line before we get our drop, then we want to wait for that retest to happen and enter our trade for the sell right over here once we're confident in that sell. Okay, if it's the other way around and we get to the double bottom, okay, we get to that double bottom, then your double bottom is technically your retest, right? So this would have been the impulsive move. The double bottom would have been the retest, and then from the retest, that's where you want to enter your trade and then take off for the upside. But again, let's see what the market gives us when it opens up, and depending on what it gives us, we'll react accordingly. Okay, so let's move on to another pair. Let's move on to the S&P 500. All right, guys, so on the S&P 500, if we're looking at the weekly, it was a bullish week, quite a bullish week for the S&P 500, and now it is at this area of resistance over here. And of course, we want to see how price reacts as it's in this area over here. Okay, so that's what we are seeing so far on the weekly. Let's go down to the daily. If we look at the daily, the levels of resistance obviously are a bit more clearer, and we are currently in that zone where current price is. So we want to make sure we understand what price does in this area. So far, it still looks pretty bullish, but again, once the market opens up, you'll get a much clearer picture on what it wants to do. Okay, so with the S&P 500, let's go down to lower time frames over here, right? So we see another area of support right down here. Okay, and let's look if there's any other area. That area actually extends all the way across. If you take a look here, all the way across, all right, previous areas of support became resistance over here and comes back to be support right over here till we get to current price. Okay, so as the markets open up, let's see what happens here. So if we get some bullish momentum as the markets open up, I'm looking for buys above this area. So if we go above this area, we get here and we break this area, then I'm now looking for a retest to continue going up to the upside. That's what I'd be looking for. But this would be my area of interest. That's where my alert would be. So I'd see what price is doing there, and then I'd wait for a retest if I want to enter that trade. Now, if that doesn't happen, then I'm looking at a couple areas for the sell. First and foremost, I'm looking at this previous area of support over here. I'll drag that across. Okay, so if price opens up and breaks this area of support, and let's say price gets to this area over here, then I want to see again. So let's say price opens up, breaks this area. I want to see some type of retest come over here before I take it for the sell. And that would definitely be my first stop as a TP1 before I take my TP2 down here, okay, to match these areas of support. TP1, this area of support right over here, and TP2, this area of support right over here. Okay, and technically this could be a TP3, but that's what I want to be looking for the S&P 500. Obviously, got to let it play out. Let's see how things go with it, and then we react accordingly based on what we're seeing here. Let's go to oil, US oil. All right, so US oil this past week had gapped, and that gap was never filled. So that is an interesting scenario. Usually when you see market opens up in a gap, it tends to fill it more times than not. It tends to fill it. It did not fill it. This gap actually happened the previous week, not last week, the previous week, and it did not fill it. It actually moved a bit higher. So we're going to see. I do think oil, if it can edge a little higher, then we probably will continue to go bullish. But at the same time, this could be a setup for the reversal since we are still at this area of resistance, as you could see over here. When we drop down to the daily now, we can see price, yes, it's starting to edge above that area of resistance, but it's not completely out of this area. So we still have to see what happens with price. So if price starts to drop, then what I'm looking for a potential sell opportunity, you can let it drop and let it retest this area. But me personally, I don't want to take this sell until it passes this area of support over here. This is also an area of support. So when price passes this area of support around here, I'll feel a bit more comfortable riding oil to see if we could fill that gap that it created the week before. Okay, but that's the scenario that I would see in order for me to take a sell on oil. Okay, now if we go to lower time frames to get a better picture of what's going on, it does look like there's potential for the continuation to the upside. Okay, so far it has been on this uptrend. We have a impulsive move, correction, continuation, correction. This whole thing is a continuation. You can consider this whole gap as a move to the upside. So this whole thing is a continuation. And this whole thing over here is a correction. Okay, so now you have your continuation again. And now we are currently on a correction. So now let's see if we get the volume we need to push further upside. And if we do, let it push to the upside, let it retest, and then we enter our trade right over there at the retest. Okay, so that's what we want to see when it comes to oil. We're going to do just one more pair. Let's do UJ. All right, guys, with UJ, this is where we are in the market. So we did have a bullish candle, okay, for the weekly, and there's an area of support down here, right over here. Okay, let's go down to the daily. Let's see more details to see where we currently are. Okay, so on the daily, we are technically on this uptrend. Okay, I know overall we're still on a downtrend if you're talking about the weekly, but the daily, more so the 4 hour, I would say more so the 4 hour, where it's going to appear that we are on this uptrend over here, and we want to see if we are going to break this area of resistance. Okay, so it may not look as clear to you just yet, but to me, I already know that as you go down to lower time frames, this is going to be a clear area of resistance. So if we go down to the 4 hour, that should be a lot clearer to you. All right, and that is an area of resistance that price has to break if we plan on continuing to the upside. Okay, so far very bullish when it comes to the 4 hour. So far so good. So there is reason to believe that we may continue to the upside, and again, wait for that retest. And where I would be comfortable taking that this trade is once it passes this area over here. Okay, so once we get to that area and break that area of resistance, I'd be more comfortable entering that trade past that line for the buy. And the next foreseeable area of resistance that I see is right over here, followed by right over here. So UJ, I do see potential for the buy side because it has been bullish. So if we continue trending that way, there is opportunity. However, it needs to be, it's very imperative that it breaks this area of resistance, because as you can see, this is a strong area of resistance. Multiple touches here, a small touch here, multiple touches here, and now this is where we currently are with price. So we want to see what price does, and again, as customary, if it reverses, then we want to wait for that retest before we ride that back down to the trend line. Okay, so plenty of profits that can be made. All right, this whole range, if it does start to drop and it retests and you enter this whole range, is over 100 pips. So plenty of money to be made if you trade carefully and if you understand what's going on in the markets and execute the proper way. Okay, so plenty of setups, guys. Plenty of ways to make money in this market in a week to come. Make sure you're on top of your markups. Again, you don't want to just do a markup like this during the weekend. You also want to do a midweek markup as the market has opened and things have shifted. Maybe your bias is not correct. You want to do a midweek markup so that you stay on top of what's going on and so you capitalize on those opportunities. All right, so I hope you gain value in this video, guys, and I hope you crush it next week. Please like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, Jordan the Maestro, take care.